Is this a victory for cyber terrorists? That's the question many are now asking now that Sony Pictures has canceled the release of the controversial comedy, The Interview. But what, if anything, is the U.S. government and the private sector doing to protect our country's most vulnerable information? Forget the movie. Republican Congressman Michael McCaul, chair of the Homeland Security Committee in the House, is with us live from Austin, Texas. Congressman McCaul, thanks for being here. So the movie's been pulled. Were Americans ever in any real danger, though?
Well, according to the Department of Homeland Security and FBI, the 9/11 style threat didn't turn out to really be credible. I sort of agree with you that pulling the movie sort of caves into what I consider to be a terrorist threat. Certainly, it's a cyber terrorism event that needs a proportionate response, and I think that's what's being debated right now. With respect to how do we protect ourselves from these attacks, I passed a bill last day of the Congress that was signed into law today by the president that will better protect our critical infrastructures, we call them, where we can share these malicious codes, this threat information with the private sector and private sector in turn with the federal government. I think that's going to go a long ways to protecting this nation from a future terrorist attack. But anytime you give in to them, you empower them, and I'm concerned we're going to see more of these types of threat based upon political and free speech.
I think, I believe it's in Texas, there was a movie theater that was going to show, instead of The Interview, they were going to show Team America World Police from 10 years ago, a movie that mocks Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, and Paramount pulled the movie. So it's not just Sony. What do you make of these decisions being made by studios? Obviously, they are concerned that if anything happens, they will be held liable and accused of putting profits before people.
Yeah, it's the Alamo Drafthouse here in Austin. I would say that, look, Sony and private movie theaters are free to make any choices they think are necessary that they deem are appropriate. However, I do think by pulling the movies, they gave the North Koreans, and let's be honest where this threat came from. I think U.S. officials have reported that it came from North Korea, this Bureau 121. And what they effectively did was give them a victory and gave them precisely what they wanted to achieve, and that is a pulling down of this movie. And I hope at some point this movie will be shown, and perhaps the intrigue built over it will make it more of a moneymaker. I don't know. But I think the pulling it down gave them exactly what they wanted.
And I guess the converse argument, when I was talking to a Hollywood friend yesterday, is that the people that control the theaters and the people who made the movie were so afraid that if anything happened, even something not done by the North Koreans, just a lone wolf or a copycat or whatever, that they would then be attacked by many of the same people who are criticizing them now for caving, for, as somebody said that they should change their name to Neville Chamberlain Pictures.
Well, and I can understand that, particularly around the Christmas holidays. That is a date that we're concerned with in the counterterrorism business. But I can see maybe a cooling off period and then showing the movie at a later date. But I think it's also important the administration, in terms of attribution, that means tracing back the attack where it came from. Clearly, I believe this came from North Korea, a state sponsor of cyber terrorism. And I think it's important that the administration respond under the military doctrine of proportionate response. I know they're trying to calculate that as we speak, but I think these economic sanctions that have been lifted against North Korea, we need to revisit those sanctions, and we need to have a response to this, because anytime a state sponsor has an act of cyber terrorism against the United States and our way of life, if there is no retaliation and no response, then there's no deterrent value or no deterrent effect. And I think that's why it's so important that we have a response to this.
I hear what you're saying in terms of the response. I wonder, however, if that then leads to an escalating cyber war between the United States and North Korea. That is, of course, the concern that we're hearing from Obama administration officials.
Well, I understand that as well, but the fact is we live in a dangerous cyber warfare world now. It's kind of a new frontier, if you will, Jake, kind of the Wild West. We've been hit by Iran, our financial sector already. There have been attacks by Russia and China, espionage, stealing things. And we need to kind of calculate what is an act of warfare in the cyberspace and what is the appropriate response and retaliation in the event of an act of cyber warfare. And I don't think that's clearly defined right now. I think the rules of the game and the rules of warfare are not clearly defined right now. And I think that's something that going into this next frontier we need to more clearly define.
Congressman Michael McCaul, thank you so much. Happy holidays, sir.